Do you suffer from painful, heavy periods, PMS, mood swings, or migraines? Are you tired of being told they are just normal parts of life? Or are you afraid your child's going to suffer these symptoms too? At Vividis, the full of life company, we take the pain, misery, and confusion out of those menstrual cycles and replace them with tools of empowerment and time management so you can be Vividis. Visit embracingflowpodcast.com for more information on transforming your cycles from ow to wow. Information shared on the Embracing Flow podcast is for educational purposes only. It does not constitute medical advice.
Ever felt frustrated being told PMS, heavy bleeding, and cramping are just normal parts of life? You're not alone. I loathed my monthly cycle for decades. That all changed when I earned 3 health coaching certifications discovering something incredible. Your period is vital. It is an outward sign of your inner health, and it holds the key to unlocking your full potential. I've been there battling heavy, painful periods, and I turn them into cycles with minimal PMS and cramping. Today, I'm on a mission to share that information with you. Pour a cup of your favorite drink, get comfy, and grab your headphones as we embark on a candid and empowering journey of self-discovery. Together, we'll demystify menstrual cycles, explore cyclical living, delve into natural birth control, and guide parents through those crucial period talks with tweens and teens. It's time to break the taboo around menstruation and embrace the wisdom it holds. I'm your host, Heather Almendinger, and this is the Embracing Flow podcast.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on Embracing Flow. I'd like to introduce our guest today, an expert at Embracing Flow, Dr. Aimee Duffy. How are you doing today, Dr. Aimee?
Hey, I'm fantastic. What a great day.
It is a beautiful day here on the East Coast. Dr. Duffy is on the East Coast along with me. And why I have Dr. Aimee on is because she is a #1 best-selling author of Normal Doesn't Have Side Effects and Why Can't She See Me? She's an award-winning speaker at Harvard Club of Boston, CNN Center, Nasdaq, New York City Bar Association, the Beverly Hills Chamber of Commerce, Carnegie Hall, and the Philadelphia College of Physicians. Dr. Duffy has shared the stage with Martha Stewart, Suzanne Somers, Ice-T, and Dr. Oz. She is a frequent podcast guest and expert guest on ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox News Network TV shows. Dr. Duffy is the founder and medical director of Carolina Integrative Medicine and Clemson IV Bar and Aesthetics in Clemson, South Carolina. She is a mother of 4 girls and a tennis player, helping women who are sick and tired of being sick and tired transform into girls that want to have fun. I absolutely love it because we do love to have fun.
Yeah. I mean, I hear that all the time. Women are just so tired, right? They're just, oh, I'm so tired and I'm so sick of being tired. And, I say, whether you want to use the word goal, but it's kind of like, what are you really hoping life will be like? And it's like, I just want to be happy again. I just want to smile again. I just want to have fun again.
Yeah.
And life just becomes so, overwhelming for a lot of people keeping up with everything that we have going on. And on top of that, physical stuff going on within your body. That's just one more thing that just puts you over the edge and you just, you're not having any fun. So
No, you're not. And you're like,
bad.
what happened to my body? Yes, I know that age is going to change things, but oh my goodness, how did I go from my pants fitting last fall to I can't even button these suckers this fall? So yes, I hear it as well. And we do just want to have fun. Before we get started into all the wonderful things that you do and the wisdom that you hold, would you be open to sharing one of your first experiences with your menstrual cycle and about what age?
Well, I'll tell you my first one because it's memorable to me. And it's interesting because I have 4 girls myself, and every single one of them started when they were 11. And so I remember my birthday's in November, and it was the summer after my birthday. So I was literally like 11 and a half, and I was visiting my grandmother in Washington State. And I mean, it's very vivid. I just remember, I my mom is very open to sharing everything, right? So I knew all about my body and what was supposed to happen. So it wasn't like a surprise necessarily that, or, what I didn't have that experience where I had no idea what was going on, thankfully. Um, but it was still a little bit of, okay, here it is. And so we were visiting my grandma, and And I just remember being in her bathroom, in the bedroom, the guest bedroom that we were staying in, kind of experience, and then having to go to the store and buy, pads or something like that. So it was very, very clear memory to me of my first period, 11 and a half years old in the summer visiting grandma.
Yeah. Mine was about mine was summer. I was 10 and a half years old. We share the same birth month. I'm a November baby as well.
Yeah.
So, and my I was at home, but my grandmother told me what was going to happen, so I knew what was happening. But yeah, some similarities there, and that's one of the reasons why I ask this question is because I love opening up that door so that way others understand they may not be alone in their journey with that
Sure.
first cycle. How did you get into becoming Dr. Aimee Duffy? Was that a dream from childhood, or did it kind of a health issue that kind of just pushed you into the medical field? What was that catalyst?
I think there several things went through that, but I mean, when I was little, I absolutely loved babies. Like babies, babies, babies. I wanted to hold babies. I had Cabbage Patch Kids. I had 4 Cabbage Patch Kids. They all had names. They all had their accessories and their clothes. And I mean, it's like, 3rd grade, 4th grade. I mean, I was so into it. Um, and I really started babysitting. Actually, my first job was when I was 11, right around the same time, and we were at a pancake breakfast, and one of our neighbors had had a baby, and he was just this, like, he was like the Michelin baby. He was so chubby and wrinkly and just sitting in the sandbox playing. And so I went over and started playing with him, and we were just connected. And the mom was like, he loves you, like, do you babysit? You can come over and play with him. And I was like, I don't think I'm old enough to babysit, but I would love to come play. So that was kind of my first job, was a mother's helper with this family, from when their baby was little and I was 11. And so, I mean, she ended up having a daycare center in her house. And so that was my after school job, my weekend job, my summer job. I was always at their house. They had 2 babies. Then her sister also lived nearby and had a baby. And I babysat the whole family. And then when I was 17, I was a senior in high school, and they were set to have their second baby, the sister, and they invited me to be in the delivery room with them. So it was Thanksgiving night in Colorado, starting to actually snow a little bit early. Um, and it was time to go to the hospital. So, I mean, I jet set it over there, and I had no idea what to expect. I'd never watched anything like this. I didn't really know medically what was supposed to happen. And so I thought I had to hurry because it was going to be, a 10-second thing. And then it was, all night long, like watching her in the bathtub and walking up and down the stairs and the breathing and the whatnot. And then when it was time for the action to happen, they gave me a little stool. And so I was up kind of behind her head, looking that direction. So I wasn't right in the middle of everything. And it was just this, obviously birth is just an amazing experience anyway, but because I really didn't know what to expect, I didn't know. And, it was just that moment when baby Josh was put on her belly, and I thought, this is the coolest thing ever. Like, I want to do this. So I knew in the back of my mind, like I had always said, I wanted to be a doctor, but I didn't really know what that meant and what it was. I had good grades, and that was just kind of like something that you would do. And I always thought I would be a pediatrician because I just loved the babies so much. But when I got to experience that, it was like, I want to deliver babies. That's what I want to do. So I did it. I went to college, I went to med school, ended up in a family practice residency because they also deliver babies, but then they get to take care of the babies too. So I thought that was the best of both worlds, and I could do everything. Um, and then about a year after my residency, we're here in small town South Carolina, and I was approached by the OBGYN office here to become a partner with them. So even though I was family practice trained, I could go do OB, be primary care for all these women who generally go to their OB for their primary care, and deliver babies, and then, give them the surgery. So that's what I did. So I was just inundated, right away with women's health, even though I was delivering lots of babies, which was awesome. The women's health care kind of had to be learned a little bit more than what I was doing in my traditional practice. So, um, y- I mean, years and years of just doing women's health, it's the frustration that came was when women were presented, I mean, literally, what kind of birth control are we going to get out of the closet? What kind of antidepressant do we need to provide? What hormone replacement if it's an older woman? And even putting older women on birth control just to, get them through until they complete menopause. And that was really, the gist of the training of hormone issues. And there was a little bit of like maybe check a thyroid every once in a while or something like that. Most of the time it's normal. Um, and so I really was just kind of frustrated to some degree. I thought, I feel like we could do this better. And so I started sort of dabbling in some, natural hormone balancing type stuff. I ended up at a conference and I didn't know any of this stuff existed on actually testing your hormones and, looking at the big picture of adrenals and thyroid. And then of course it, blends into gut health and all this mess of what we do and what we call functional or integrative medicine. So that was 20, almost 20 years ago now when I went to my first conference, and it was just this aha moment. I felt like Alice in Wonderland going through that little tiny door into this, like, what is this world of, actually taking care of your patients and listening and individualizing the approach, not just, let me look at the list of birth control options and which one might be better, right? So that's really where I started this journey of women's health and how I ended up there. And then it just naturally progressed. I mean, I don't know, depending on what area you're in. I mean, what we call the healthcare system, or, it's not really big pharma, but it's big hospital systems are taking over everywhere, right? So that OBGYN office was looking at getting bought out by the hospital system and going into that direction. And I knew that that wasn't going to be the right thing for me. I didn't want to be put in a box. And so I opened my own practice in 2011. So it's been 13 years now. And so we do, integrative functional health, really looking at why do you have these issues and what's going on, and not just band-aiding it with what's the pill of the month kind of thing. So that's where
Yeah.
we are.
I love it. When women present themselves to you at your practice, is it more PCOS that you see? Is it more gut related? Is it more thyroid related? Is it insulin and glucose related? Um, all of the
All of the
above?
above, I would say. I mean, we were talking about, writing some new blogs and like what was going to be the topic of our new blogs. And, I said, well, if we look back at, sort of the main complaints that our patients come with, um, there's probably the top 5 or 6 that's always, it's fatigue, it's weight gain, it's some sort of hormone thing, whether it's irregular menstrual cycles or menopause. Um, Pain, whether it's joint pain, headaches, some kind of pain they're dealing with, and then usually some GI thing. Thyroid is tricky because they don't, they either come in and they already are on thyroid medicine and that's not an issue for them, or they don't know that thyroid is their issue. So that can come into play sometimes, but it's not usually like a presenting, I have a thyroid issue, I want you to fix. It's more what the symptom is, right? So fatigue, weight gain, can't sleep. Then we get some mood stuff. So definitely sort of depression, anxiety, irritability. We see that. Mood, brain, I can't remember things or I can't focus. Um, so I mean, it's just this mixture, and it's kind of like it's always the same, but which one's kind of at the top, right?
Mhm.
And and so our job, right, is to kind of figure out what I talk about is this analogy of this watering can. So imagine you have this watering can, right? And as you fill it up with water, because the spout's coming from the bottom, there's going to be a time when the water comes out the spout. And I think our traditional medical approach is the water coming out the spout is your symptom. We're gonna focus on that water coming out the spout. What's our band-aid? What's going to plug the hole, or what's going to, catch it every 24 hours, and we have to empty the bucket. And our job is to go in and say, okay, what are all the layers that are filling up this bucket, and how can we work through that? So we don't always know kind of what's the core. Is it the hormone imbalance that led to all these symptoms, or is it some, adrenal or thyroid or gut issue that led to a hormonal imbalance that, caused the presenting symptoms? So it's definitely a puzzle, but you can see patterns and you can see a commonality between the majority of them.
Yeah. Do you find that those that really understand their cycle are easier to kind of look at overall that um or is it just kind of they just walk in and you don't really need to know how their cycle other than how long is it? How long are you bleeding? How heavy is it?
Yeah. I mean, there's generally some basic questions, but again, the underlying issue, I mean, if we're getting into hormonal imbalance, especially somebody who's still cycling, is usually some lack of progesterone. And most often that's going to come from adrenal, and we can get into all that stuff in a minute. But so what happens is there's so many different factors that go into that, right? So it's not really diagnostic to be like, okay, well, this person who has their cycles, more frequently have this thing going on, where this person who has their cycles less frequently or their period is longer lasting, that kind of stuff. I mean, it's generally the same underlying issue for the most part, that this just presents differently. So it's definitely important to, you know, for the patient to be able to present, this is where I am. So my cycles are this many days, they last this long, that kind of stuff, more so that we can establish a baseline. So as we see, is this improving? We're able to say, okay, previously your cycles were, 38 days or 45 days, but they lasted 10 days, where now we're starting to see them, more towards 30 and they're only, 6 days. So it gives us, a nice baseline, but like I said, it's not, to me anyway, it's not really diagnostic to be able to like know exactly what your cycle is doing. When we get into fertility, that certainly becomes more questionable or more important as to, exactly what the timing is and can we tell when you're ovulating, that kind of stuff, but
Outside of
it's
fertility,
different.
yeah. And that's what I've been hearing, and that's kind of what I experience as well. When individuals present themselves with adrenal fatigue, what are some symptoms that you know almost immediately? It's, oh, we're dealing with adrenals. And I know everybody's different. I know everybody presents differently and the symptoms are different. But what are some of the common adrenal fatigue, adrenal issues that you see?
Yeah. I mean, energy is certainly one of them, and I think it's kind of, the classic tired and wired is what we see. So it's like, I'm exhausted all day long. All I think about is when do I get to take a nap, or when do I get to sleep? Um, More often it's afternoon fatigue, but a lot of times, I mean, it depends on the severity of the adrenal dysfunction as to whether we're talking about morning fatigue too, where it's just like I feel like I slept all night, but I'm waking up and thinking I'm not ready to get out of bed yet. Um, but it's, I'm exhausted all day, but then my sleep is not good. And you either can't fall asleep because your brain is now busy worrying about all the things that you didn't get done, or the things you need to get done tomorrow that you're already overwhelmed with. Often waking up too early in the morning is also an adrenal kind of thing. It's like that, 4 to 5 a.m., like again, not really consciously ready to get up out of bed, but your brain is like, "Whew, we just thought about something and we need to now, focus on that." So definitely we can see some things going on there. Cravings are a big thing. So carb, I call it margarita time because it's the salt sugar, the salt sweet, it's happy hour. So that, afternoon before dinner sort of craving, and then after dinner we see it too. Like, I need salt and then I need sugar and then I need salt again and then I need sugar. And so we're going back and forth. And then of course you're frustrated because you are gaining weight and nothing's happening, right? Or I wanna do all the right things, but then these cravings kick in and I, was so good. I ate my salad for lunch and then, here comes the pretzels or whatever. Um, so we see that. Weight definitely is a frustration, and I think a lot of people think it's high cortisol, and it certainly can be high, but I see more low cortisol by the time the patients get to me, because the adrenals are just worn out. They've been running the marathon of life uphill, sprinting most of the time and never really, get that calm and that relaxation. Um, so that's definitely a part of it. I mean, and again, that overwhelm, that anxiety, a lot of people are like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so stressed out. Surely my cortisol's through the roof." And we talk a lot about that low cortisol being more like I use caveman analogies all the time, or cavewoman analogies, right? Where we're, hanging out in a field of flowers and everything should be great. And you see the saber-toothed tiger crouching over here. And then all of a sudden, your body's not responding. So your brain senses the fear, but the cortisol or the adrenaline's not kicking out for you to start running. And then that becomes anxiety, right? That's a
Mhm.
fear. I'm not going to be able to handle whatever's coming at me. And so that is very classic adrenal, is like this sensation of anxiety. And they're not going to say I'm scared. It's
Mm-mm.
more, I get super irritable, I'm anxious, I can't. The severe ones, like, they don't want to go to the store. They don't want to go out in places because it's just so overwhelming. So I call that hibernating. It's like your brain says, nope, stay in your cave. We're not going out there because we don't know whether we can outrun the tiger today. So it's safer just to stay in your cave. So you get the, I don't want to go do things. I don't want to go places. Classically, if they went to a psychiatrist, they may be diagnosed with depression, right?
Mhm.
But it's really not a depressive issue. I mean, it's not major depressive disorder. It's, I'm depressed because I don't feel good enough to go do the things that I want to do.
Yeah,
That's that's the picture that I see. And again, most of the time it's adrenal. Sometimes it's thyroid, throws its play in there. And then when we're talking about the hormone picture, and you might have already planned to go into this, but this is what happens, in my opinion, based on experience, is women who are kind of premenopause having hormonal dysfunction is usually because their adrenals are shot.
Mm.
And when you go back to the caveman days, like, it's more important for us to stay alive than it is to procreate. So we're going to dump all of our energy into cortisol and adrenal, and we want to get fancy about the biochemistry. Progesterone and cortisol are in the same pathway. Progesterone's
Mhm.
first, then cortisol. So if we're really focused on we need to save the cortisol, then it's going to suck progesterone down. So we start to see the low progesterone symptoms, which leads us to the menstrual irregularities, the infertility, the
Mhm.
weight gain, the sleep is a big thing with low progesterone as well. And mood, that's low progesterone is like PMS all the time, because that's what happens is we didn't get pregnant, so our progesterone drops about a week before our period, and now we feel like yuck all the time.
Mhm.
So that's classic, right? And so generally speaking, your hormonal irregularities, if it's not something really quirky like a thyroid or some congenital hormone dysfunction, it's going to be low cortisol that's driving that. And then on the flip side, somebody's like, I was great until I went through menopause and then I went crazy. That's generally more the hormone changes that then might affect cortisol and some other things.
What are some things that individuals can do for themselves, not necessarily self-diagnose, but are there some daily things that they can do that may help them get through that if they're not quite ready to seek somebody out of your expertise?
Absolutely. So, I mean, like I said, if the adrenal fatigue is coming because we're asking our bodies to, live in a higher cortisol state than what was designed, then what are the things that we can do to sort of get out of that fight or flight response, right? Because it's very easy to live there all the time. And and it's easier said than done, is reduce stress, right? Well, what does that mean? Like, I can't take your stress away. You still got to get up and pick up your kids and do all the appointments or go to work or whatever the things are, but how can we sort of take a moment? I mean, it can be little moments of breathing, right? So telling your body that you're okay, telling your body we're not being chased by the tiger. So whether you want to call that meditation, you want to call it, moments of breathing. And there's about 800 ways to breathe. So, we could spend a whole nother podcast on breathing stuff, but what is it going to take for you to literally, like, take a minute to take some deep breaths, telling your brain, because we're in fight or flight. You can imagine you're not breathing deep. You're just trying to catch your breath, if you want to call it. So telling your body, really getting into that deeper abdominal breathing, that slower breathing, is going to send signals that say, okay, we're calm. So that's number one, super important. What are the things that we can control? So adrenal fatigue can certainly come from outside stressors, but it can come from inside stressors too. So are you eating foods? Are you are you ingesting things into your body that maybe your body has to go, I have to think about this for a minute. What do I need to do with this? Do I need to put a saran wrap around it to protect us, right? So anytime we're eating something that isn't really food, so, chemicals and things that have long names that we can't pronounce, that kind of stuff, those are stressors that our body you may not notice, right? It's not like I put this food in and all of a sudden I have a reaction, but it's something your body goes, "I don't recognize this, I don't know what it is, and it's gonna take me a minute to figure it out," right? So can you look at your food or your supplements or your, soda, whatever it is that you're putting into your body and say, is this something that's going to fuel me and give my body energy? Is there something my body's going to have to work hard to deal with? Right.
Mhm.
So that we can control for the most part. Yes, there's cravings and whatnot, and it's not all about willpower, but, we can control as much as we can. Um, Sleep, I mean, of course you lay down and you want to sleep, but if we're on our screens all the time, that's another, may not be stress, but that's a stimulation that is telling our brains we're not ready to calm down, we're not ready to go to sleep yet. We need more cortisol, right? So light increases cortisol. So the more lights you have on, the more screen stimulation is going to suppress melatonin and turn on cortisol. So nighttime routines, and I'm not saying, you can't ever look at your phone or TV again, but can we start some process of saying, the earlier we can turn it on, can we, have different lights in our house now that are a different color or a soft light. So you can start turning down the lights a little bit. You can start, separating from your screen time and, there's all these different theories on taking a warm bath or a warm shower, but then no, you should cold plunge because being cold before you go to bed is better. Like what's going to feel good that helps you relax? Like what's your routine? And I think a lot of people their routine is sit on the couch until I fall asleep and then I get up and I go lay in bed and then I can't sleep, so then I'm going to stare at my phone and, TikTok or Facebook forever and not sleep. So, focusing on what are some habits that we can do to sleep better, um, are ways that we can sort of remind our brain this is what normal is. Wake up in the morning, go to bed. Exercise easier said than done. I mean, a lot of women, they know, everybody knows we should move more, right? Everybody would love to exercise more. I think not everybody loves exercise, but they know that that's a good, healthy habit to be in. So whether we don't like it, whether we don't know how to, whether we're just too darn tired to move. So I think that exercise plays a huge role in our mental state. So the more we move, just the more we feel better. And I think the less we move, the more down we start to feel. Like we're just like, oh, I'm so lazy. What's wrong with me? There must be something wrong with me all the time. Um, Again, easier said than done, but can you find baby ways to exercise? Can we go up the stairs instead of the elevator? And, there's a gazillion videos out there on YouTube for 10-minute exercise, 10-minute stretch, 10-minute yoga, 10-minute this, like do 10-minute little things instead of trying to, put your yoga pants on and sneakers and hit the gym 5 days a week. That's the other thing is if we're doing this boot camp stuff and getting up at 4 in the morning to get your exercise in, like that's the worst thing for your adrenals. And if you're doing it and you feel great, then by all means go for it, right? But like that's really hard on our system if we're trying to run from a tiger when we're still sleeping or we should still be sleeping, right? So that's just asking your adrenals for more stress. So if that's the best only way that you can find the time to exercise is to get up early, that's okay, but I think we need to listen to our bodies a little bit. Maybe that doesn't have to be every day. Can we find some other ways to get exercise that's not so intense?
So we really don't need that 60, 90-minute day in the gym, even 10 minutes
There's a
throughout
there's
the
a lot of
day.
more recent studies that you're seeing better results when you do more movement. I call it conscious daily movement, where we're moving around throughout the day more frequently than the one burst of, 45 minutes at 5:30 a.m. and then we're very, very sedentary the rest of the day. Like that's not ideal either. Now, if that's all you can do, then yes, please get it in once a day. But, trying to kind of spread it out throughout the day is a little bit better.
I found for me 15 minutes.
Hmm.
15 minutes full body workout or full body workout several times a day with a core day or an arm day. really worked for me. And I was like, "Oh, I don't have to spend an hour and a half in the gym."
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And then, sometimes you might want to, right?
Mhm.
So I also have to adjust, like for me personally, like I have weeks where I'm very busy in the office and then I have weeks that I'm doing stuff like this, right? Which is still work, but it's not seeing patients. So schedule is a little bit easier, that kind of stuff. So and then you have the weekends and I have kids, so my weekends can be busy. I play tennis, so my weekends are busy, but I had to turn my brain because so many people are like, okay, I'm going to go to the gym. And you can see it, when you look at the gym, like, times that are busier is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, right? And like, why have we decided that that's the workout days? Like everybody has to go at the same time, or, I got to go Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And so that creates a lot of stress for yourself internally to be like, that doesn't fit for my schedule. And so it doesn't have to be that way. Like for me, if I have a busy week at work, I see patients Monday through Thursday, like I'm not going to have some heavy workouts during those days just because I don't have time. And that's okay. Then I'll try to time it out where I'm doing a little bit more, on the weekends and then be okay with, these days where I have a little bit more space and time that I can do some more things throughout the day. Take the dog for a longer walk, get a hike in, something like that. And so you don't have to be so structured. Like and I think what happens is you want to have that structure so you can have a plan, right? And you can't just be like, oh, I don't feel like doing anything today. But at the same time, I think we live in such a structured world that if it doesn't happen that day, then that's where the mental, like, oh my God, I'm so crappy. What's wrong with me? Again, this whole like I can't do what I said I was set out to do. And for a lot of people, I mean, by the time I see them and I see their cortisol levels as low as they are, I'm like, no, you can't go to the gym. Like, this is not what your adrenals want you to do right now. Like, breathing, yoga, calm stuff. I want you to move your body because that's really important for just circulation, lymphatics, mental health, that kind of stuff. But maybe the hit workout at the gym is not the right place for you to be right now.
Yep. And I prefer more calisthenics, yoga,
Yeah.
Pilates, breathing and stretching. It works for me in my body right now. Younger, completely different
Yeah. I
ball
mean,
game.
we're going to go through changes and people say, well, what's the best workout? And it's like, well, which one are you going to actually do? Right.
Mhm.
So we got to figure out what's going to be the most consistent one. And sometimes that's one that's going to be shorter, right? Because
Mhm.
if again, it's like, oh, I made this plan to do P90X and that's a 90-minute workout every day. That's very intense, number
Yeah.
one. And I mean, yes, we'll see some great results with that, but that also can be overwhelming to just figure out how to fit that into your schedule. And so, being overscheduled is part of the issue and part of the problem with our adrenals. So here we are adding more things to our
Yeah.
schedule to do. So less sometimes can be better.
That it can be. You have 2 books that
I do.
that are out. Can you tell us about your books, please?
Yeah. So the first one I wrote is called Normal Doesn't Have Side Effects. And, I've had these conversations. It's the same conversation I'm having with you, I'm having with my patients. I use a lot of analogies so they can understand. And so people have told me for years, you need to write a book. You need to write a book. Like you have all this knowledge and you can explain it so much better. And I'm like, nobody wants to read that book. It's kind of like, I don't know. And then one day I realized that I'm always saying the same phrase, like particularly when it comes to adrenals or hormones or thyroid is like, our whole goal is to get things back to normal. And it's sort of a different thing because we're not talking about labs where people are like, well, normal may not feel optimal, right? That's a separate normal. But, for the most part, it's like if I can look at your labs and say, my goal is for your cortisol to be normal, right? Where we want it to be, your progesterone be normal, that kind of thing. And when I'm prescribing whatever it is that we're gonna do for that, I say, I don't have to sit here and list the 8 million side effects that are gonna come with this prescription because normal doesn't have side effects, right? Like our
Mhm.
goal is to get you back to normal, and then we're not gonna have all the negative issues that come with like a medication. Because medications are not normal. Like those are again chemicals that are going into your body that are changing a signal or doing something that, is suppressing or stimulating and it's not normal. So that was kind of the quote that I'm like I say all the time and it just prompted to then say, okay, where do we go into that? So my book is a great compilation too because I started working on myself a little bit more. You can really spend a lot of time taking care of your babies and taking care of your business and your patients and like what happened to me. Um, and part of that was just going through being able to talk a little bit more about some of my struggles and experiences and memories and things like that. And so I took some core stories that were really profound to me for different reasons and felt like, I wanted to be more real and I wanted, this was not a textbook of clinical stuff.
Mhm.
It was where did I come from and why am I here? And so the baby story is in there, right? And why did I do what I do? Um, and so I'm a human being. I mean, I've been through changes. I was married to an alcoholic for 20 years and went through a divorce with 4 kids, and that was scary. I probably stayed married for a lot longer than I should have just because I didn't know that that was something I could do or wanted to do and dive into that. Um, and then, uh, uh, what led to the next book is the chapter of the story that talks about my second daughter who was 14 at the time and went through some suicidal thoughts and
Mhm.
actions and she was cutting and she ended up in the hospital and just that story of life and I'm like, here I am, this doctor who should have seen the signs and I shouldn't have a kid that, is going through this stuff. Like we should be perfect, right? So that's what our life should look like. And that was right when we were going through our separation and told her basically like around on Christmas Day that we were getting a divorce. And then this was April when she ended up in the hospital. So of course, for a teenager, that's stressful. Um, so the second book was basically her and I telling our story from each perspective. And so this came from us talking about it and me sharing my experience and wanting to her to be okay with, hey, I'm putting this story in my book because it was an important life-changing experience
Mhm.
for me to wake up and go, hey, what I'm doing and what I'm experiencing is affecting my kids. And that was part of what drove me to need to get a divorce because I was very unhappy and very stressed out, and that was not what I wanted my kids to experience. Um, so she and I then start, talking a little bit more about this, and we were in a group of people, and I shared that story, and they all want to look at her and say, "Well, what was your experience like? That's your mom's version of this story." And so then she tells her version, which is similar, but of course different from its her perspective. And it was like, "You guys should write this book." So we literally had an outline where we started to put 2 and 2 together, and so each chapter is basically my version and then her version of that experience, and, it was really profound. It was a great book.
That sounds like a great book. It sounds like that opened up some doors for both of you to be able to communicate. Really cool bonding moment in a
Yeah,
really traumatic and challenging situation
yeah.
to be able to
It's
go through
been
that.
and I think we went through it and really I don't wanna say we brushed it under the rug, but she and I really didn't talk about it a whole lot. Um, so, coming through she's 20 now, so this was, 6 years ago. Um, it really has, changed our relationship and our ability to communicate with each other. I think it's changed how I communicate with her 2 younger sisters. Um, and, for a long time, they didn't know, they had no idea what happened and where Maddie went, for that week that she was gone when she was sick. And, we didn't talk about it, right? And that was kind of I didn't talk about the alcoholism that was in our family and what was going on, and I didn't talk to anybody else about it. Like, I was ashamed that this was going on in our life, and again, I was like, "I'm the doctor, like, this shouldn't happen." And so, really getting that out has been life-changing for me, for sure, for me and my kids, but also I think, having that vulnerability just changes the way that I communicate with the world, with people, with my patients, and I think patients look at, okay, you're a doctor, but you're also a person, right? And
Mm.
so it helps our relationship as well.
Yeah, it allows that you've given them that safe space to
Yeah.
communicate with you and to share with what they're experiencing. So that way you're getting that full picture and you can look at the whole person and not just those symptoms. They know that you're not on a pedestal, that you have your challenges. So it's all absolutely beautiful. I
Yeah.
where can people find more about you and what you
Well,
do, the IV bar, all that fun stuff?
all kinds of stuff, right? So my practice is Carolina Integrative Medicine. So if you're in South Carolina, North Carolina, we're licensed in both places, then certainly we'd love to see you. We do virtual visits as well. So, I mean, even if you're far away, we can see you online within those states. We do have some ability, and there, there's the fine line if you're not within that state to do, sort of some coaching or, less medically stuff. Um, Supplement recommendations, that sort of thing. So, but even then, I try, part of why I do podcasts like this is talking about it, educating people, helping you understand. So are there some things that they could do? What questions might I ask my doctor that maybe, I can get some help with, or at least start the process, right? So certainly website is a place to go. For Carolina Integrative Medicine, then I have a website that's just mine. That's aimeeduffymd.com. So that's more about this, my podcasts and my TV segments and books and things like that are there. Facebook, always, any kind of social media. So Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I put all these videos on YouTube so that people can find us and see us there. So pretty much if you spell my name right, which is Aimee, so it's a little bit tricky, um, you'll find us wherever you may be.
Sounds wonderful. Do you have any wise words of wisdoms to leave us with before we go?
I think really as I was thinking about this whole adrenal thing, because I will tell you that by the time women get to me, it often, I don't know whether adrenal is the core, but there's definitely some adrenal stuff there. So just like I said, I can take a moment and say, okay, how can I tell my brain I'm not running from a tiger today? And I think that we live in this overwhelmed state, and so just find a moment, whether it's little moments. I could be inside in my office right now, right? And I'm like, oh, but it's so nice outside. Like, find those moments, find those little pieces of how can I make today better? How can I make today a calmer day? Um, find those moments. That's not in front of the screen. That's not, the yelling, screaming, whatever you might find, and start working on you. Because as a mom of 4 kids, and like I said, I mean, it was really just 5 years ago maybe that I really started paying attention more to me, and I'm a better mom for it, and so, I love, the quote from, I can't think of his name, Hal Elrod, who wrote The Miracle Morning, but he talks about, you owe it to those you love to be in the best state that you're in, at your best potential. Let me go backwards. You owe it to those you love to be at your best potential so that you can help them be at their best potential. So many women, so many moms really sacrifice their own health and their own life for their kids or for their job or for their spouse or their older family member that they're taking care of, right? I mean, I see that all the time, and they lose themselves along the way. And it's so easy to get lost in that. And if you just take a moment to say, hey, I got to focus on myself, you're going to be able to do all these things so much better.
I love it. That was some amazing words of wisdom to end on. Thank you so much, Dr. Aimee Duffy, for taking us on an enlightening journey into adrenals and gut health and hormonal health. This has been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. All the links can be found in the show notes. Thank you so much, listeners, for spending your time with us today. If you found a nugget of wisdom or a moment of empowerment, my mission is accomplished. Do you know someone that could benefit from the information? Please share Embracing Flow with them. Until next time, my friends, love hard, laugh often, and as always, be vividous. Talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Embracing Flow. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow the show, submit a rating and review, and share it with your friends. Visit my website to receive your free PDF on 4 ways to decrease PMS. The link is in the show notes. Until next time, love hard, laugh often, and as always, be vividous.
Information shared on the Embracing Flow podcast is for educational purposes only. It does not constitute medical advice.